I'm Dani. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to share about my favorites in no particular order. Curaçao, I loved her. I feel like she went through this competition pretty unnoticed, which is kind of crazy to me because in recent years, they've been in the top 5 and in the top 10. They are a small island country with few contestants at their national pageant, but I do feel like they really send great representatives. And I feel like this was a good performance. Obviously, different night, different judges. Things could have gone very different for her, but I just want to recognize her in this episode. Great Britain. I was really happy to see all the energy she brought to the stage. I thought that this performance was fantastic. I think it greatly improved from her national competition. When I saw this, I was like, wow, she has such a great advocacy. I was expecting to see her at least in a top 30 because I just feel like she has so much to offer and she has so much value to provide to the organization. I was very disappointed not to see her in a top 30. Italy for me had been on my edge for several episodes, but she was somebody who was standing out to me. She's so tall, she's a model, she looks stunning here on stage. I really thought that she delivered a nice performance for a top 30, but it just goes to show that swim can't carry you in these competitions. You need that interview score, and frankly, I think we needed that gown score. I would be really curious to see what Italy would have wore for a full out preliminary gown competition. I feel like some of the contestants were not wearing gowns that they normally would have wore because they didn't get to actually walk and compete in gown. Turks and Caicos was one of my favorites throughout the competition. I really loved her. I think this is a fantastic performance. However, I don't like how they had styled her bangs in the front. It's like they like kind of glued them to her hair and they twisted them back or kind of curled them back. I don't even know how to describe this, but I do feel like the bangs were distracting. I think that the hairstyle needed to be slightly different, but she is so stunning, and I just wish that they would have really recognized this performance so that she could have had a moment to change up that styling for finals. Colombia, I was really worried for her when I saw her step out on stage because I feel like her makeup was so different from her national competition. I do feel like it was sort of flat on stage. That's the best way I think I can describe it. I think that her eyes needed more definition or lips or more contour or something. I'm not a makeup artist, but I just felt like the makeup was hindering her and holding her back. But makeup aside, look at the performance. I feel like that is what should count. And I do feel like she really would have excelled in evening gown. She had an outstanding gown performance at her national pageant. I loved Jamaica throughout the entire competition. For me, she was easily in a top 30. Just go and listen to her winning answer for her national competition. She's just fantastic. She's beautiful. She looks put together all the time. And I just thought that this performance was solid. Also, she reminds me a lot of my Miss Massachusetts USA, Alyssa. I feel like facially they resemble each other. Slovakia, I talked about in other episodes because she just competed at Miss Supranational, where she was selected as the Supra model of the world. I feel like she has a great walk. I think that this is a perfect example of that. I do, however, feel like she needed different styling. I would have for sure removed the necklace that she's wearing. I was personally a little bit distracted by that. And I do actually prefer her hair down. That's how I got to see her compete at Supra. So I think that she's beautiful though, and I just still wanted to recognize this performance because I think she did a job well done. Paraguay is beautiful. I expected a routine like this from her. I really feel like she went unnoticed. I loved her headshot. It was definitely in my top 5 picks of the entire group. I think she's so beautiful. She looks just like her images, but I didn't feel like anybody was really talking about her. There was no hype. New Zealand is so beautiful, and I talked about her in other episodes. She had competed at Miss Universe Philippines. I think that she delivered a really solid swim performance here. One thing, however, is I wish that we would have seen different hairstyling. I feel like I'm just not used to seeing her with this like down super voluminous look, and I actually prefer some of her other hairstyles. Also, maybe just pull like one piece of the hair back off of her shoulder. That could have made a difference as well. I feel like when she stepped out, I was really focused on hair versus being more focused on her and her facial expressions, but I think overall she did a great job here. DR Congo, I think, had a great performance. What I really liked about her is that she just seemed so relaxed. I could have seen her moving on to finals for that top 30. I really liked this performance, but I wasn't in the interview room with her, and We don't have gown performances, so I feel like we potentially really could have missed out on her. I liked this. Norway is one of those countries where I like the performance. I think this was good. However, I do think that she needed different styling. I feel like because she's on stage and she's under lights, the makeup was too washed out on her. It was a little bit too natural. I think she needed a little bit more to make her face really pop on stage. But she's another great example of a European country really stepping it up this year. So I'm excited to see these European countries next year. Botswana to me was super confident. You can tell that she has a lot of experience on the runway. I loved this. This was a very clean performance. I think that she did an outstanding job here. She did stand out to me leading up to prelims. Honestly, I was really hoping for a placement for her. USA, a contestant that I bet a lot of people were surprised to see on this list of unplaced performances. Oh my goodness. So Alma, I think, she had a really strong swimsuit performance at Miss USA. I think it's one of the big reasons why she moved forward and she ended up winning eventually. I think that she was actually very consistent here at Miss Universe. I feel like she brought basically what we saw at Miss USA, but I do feel like she was overshooting throughout the competition, and this would be a good example of that. I felt like she was bouncing in and out of her positions, her posing transitions. I feel like she could have just pulled back a little bit and been really aware of bouncing. I feel like it's a very American thing to see contestants bounce for swim and gown. I feel like if we look at all of the countries, that a bigger percentage of US representatives tend to bounce in their walk than in other countries. Not to say we don't see it at all, but I feel like that comes from the fact that we have youth pageantry here, and it is a big thing. It's big business here in the US. We start at ages 4 and we work our way up. If you look at youth pageantry in other countries, like let's say Latin American countries, the Philippines, Vietnam, you'll see these little girls and they'll be wearing these 6-inch heels and walking like adults do. Well, in the US, we're not a fan of that. And actually, we will score contestants down if they're walking in a way that makes them look like a grown woman. I feel like that's such a big difference between US youth pageantry and international youth pageantry. It's that in the US, we don't crown contestants who walk like adults. We want them to be cute and bouncy and like the little girls that they are. So it's a very different way of competing. But what's really tough is that we award these girls for competing like that for so many years, and then they age into a Miss division, and then it's really difficult for them because they've built all of these habits that their muscles have memorized, and then when they get into a Miss division, they're expected to do the opposite of that. And I feel like that's why we see a lot of contestants at Miss USA who might not, make it in my pre-preliminary picks episodes, for example, because I've seen them work their way through youth pageants and they've not been able to get the bounce out of their walk or get the glitz arms out of their walk. That's kind of an overall note specifically for my contestants in the US. You gotta start making that transition at some point. What worked in youth is not really gonna work in Miss. It's very rare to see it happen. Somalia really impressed me. I did notice her when the Queens visited Miami prior to Miss Universe, and I thought she looked really beautiful here, but I'm just more so impressed with the quality of her routine and her walk and the facial transition changes. I would have loved to see her move on in that top 30 because I feel like she would have brought us a really great and entertaining performance for finals night. So I was very disappointed not to see her in a top 30. Belarus, I did notice her leading up to the competition. Her style did stand out to me, and let me just say that Europe really showed up this year. Obviously Denmark won, but I want to say overall in terms of continental improvement, I feel like we saw leaps and bounds from Europe. So I thought that this was a good performance. I do, however, wish she had done this without the kiss at the end. That reminds me of Miss Grand International. I loved Malta's smile. I think she is so beautiful. She looks so fit on stage. Oh my gosh, she is actually our oldest contestant this year. She's 40 and she has 3 children. She looks phenomenal. And I just really, really love how clean the routine was and how confident she was the entire time. She didn't hesitate for one moment. Spain was on my edge, but I still want to put her in this episode because I still think that she did a great job. I think that the walk itself was a little bit bouncy, and I feel like it was leaning more towards a Miss Grand International performance. So I feel like for me, that may have hindered me from giving her a higher score if I had been judging, but I still really like her. Honestly, I was very impressed by Latvia. I think that she did a great job. I thought that she had a really, really beautiful headshot. I don't think that she was in my headshots episode. She was right on my edge for that episode though. I just think that she's so beautiful. She looks exactly like she does in her images. She was just stunning, and I was really impressed by this performance. But once again, we're seeing a European country that we don't normally hear about at Miss Universe really stepping up. So I think that she did a fantastic job. Brazil, I feel like, is one of our countries that a lot of people were very surprised that she didn't place, and I'm right there with you. I thought that she would have been in the top 30. She had such a phenomenal nationals performance, and I feel like that carried over very well to preliminary swim. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see our ladies in gown, and I really think that if we had seen their gown walks, that the top 30 would have been very different. But I thought overall, this is a great unplaced swim walk. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon.